Alrighty, hey nerds, Sages here. So, well, today we know that a legendary banner is coming. We know all the units that are coming, but, well, let's just say that, even with 8% and a focus rate, for the non-focus set to 0, we still have to take a look at all the units that are available, and since a lot of you, maybe you don't know which ones you want to aim for, or if you just want a really powerful unit, which color you should aim for, let's go through that real quick and just talk about this legendary banner and see which pool is probably the best to pull from, okay? Okay, so let's just start with the obvious colors. The first one is going to be red, and, well, that has 3 units. That, of course, is our good friend Ryoma, our good friend Roy, and Sigurd as well. Now, Brave Roy, of course, different from normal Roy, much stronger. But the one thing I want to touch upon here is that, yeah, these units are bulky. They're crazy. They're powerful. The red pool for this summon banner is strong, just like last legendary banner. Just because of sheer power, 2 of them have Cavalier, our Cavalier units. 1 of them has distant counter. That means that all 3 of them are going to be strong contenders if you happen to want to, 1, have a good unit that can counter from a distance, or 2, happen to be building a horse team or want to try and experiment with horse emblem in some way. So let's go through with the ratings, because I like assigning numbers to things and just giving you a general idea of what's so good about them. So Ryoma, even though he's still a launch unit, he is still 5 out of 5 just because of his distant counter, his great stat spread, he has amazing speed, good attack, and will be able to at least hold up against most other units. If you get him, he will serve you extremely well. And that's just because, well, yeah, that shows you how crazy a a distant counter weapon can really handle things here. So, again, all in all, red is still insanely strong. Roy gets a 4 out of 5, and I only gave him this just because, well, technically, even though he does a lot of damage, he may find himself in situations where he may not be able to take, hits as strongly, but honestly, if you happen to run a horse emblem team, he can easily be bumped up to, to 5 out of 5. He is a great unit, has a lot of attack, and that's because his weapon has an additional attack spread, attack stat added to it, as well as heavy blade, which just means that he'll be charging that cooldown a lot faster than you expect. Next up, we have Sigurd, who I honestly believe is a 5 out of 5. Just by sheer survivability, he is an asshole to kill. Divine Tearfing negates some damage, and then of course he also has his B slot passive that will encourage even more survivability out of him. He can really be a jerk to kill if you are a mage, things like that. So honestly, even outside of Horse Emblem, he still does fairly well at being that jerk that can come in, hit really hard, and also survive some magic damage without having to really, deal with it too much. That is red pool, and honestly, I would say that out of that is a 5 out of 5 for the red pool. They're all so good, which is something I can't say for a lot of the other pool that we have going up, but we'll talk about that in a second, okay? So let's just move on from here. We're going to get rid of all of our red units here and move on to blues. Oh boy, blues. So, the first thing we have to talk about is the fact that, of course, we do have Fjorm. She is coming back, and, she is a legendary hero herself, which, of course, is always an advantage. We also have 2 other seasonal units that are coming with her, that, of course, being Bunny Lucina and Bride Charlotte. So, how exactly do these rank among them? Well, let's go through it by, on a case-by-case basis here. Fjorm gets a 4 out of 5, and that's mostly, I'm just giving her a 4 out of 5. I really, really love her. She's a great unit, but there are a few things that we need to discuss when it comes to the summoning pool. First up, you do get her for free. I know IS likes to tell you that you're gonna get her for free, but you do. You get her for free if you beat Chapter 1 of Book 2. Do I have to explain that again? Which means that that kind of lessens the appeal of trying to roll for her again unless you really want to merge her. And that's just generally how I feel about legendary banners when it comes to trying to pull the units you want. If you're a person who just wants to go for a unit that's powerful, generally I feel you just want to you want to go for the ones that are more powerful. And while Fjorm is great, you get her for free. So all in all, she's a strong unit. She has great defenses. Her attack's a little lackluster in some ways, but other than that, she will serve you well if you do get her. But I really highly suggest maybe perhaps you go and do, Chapter 1 of Book 2. Anyways, moving on from that, we of course have Bunny Lucina, and she gets a 3 out of 5. She's a strong blue mage. She can be a really strong blue tome unit. The only problem though is that she's going to be competing against a lot of other blue tome units, and if you don't have Lindy or Lind, whichever you prefer, or Delthea or any of the other blue tome units that have come out in recent months, then Loot, all those fun stuff, then you can probably roll for her, but just be aware she is a seasonal unit. She's only going to be around until they rerun the event, probably sometime in Easter. But even then, she's just simply not as strong as some of the other ones out there. And it's kind of a bit of a bummer, but again, if you want to make something work, you can easily do that. I'm not saying you can't. So next up is Bride Charlotte. She has strong speed and attack, but other than that, she is, again, having to compete with other Lance units. And unless you really want her, which I'm sure a lot of you do, then, well, I think you can honestly say skipping the blue pool is not a bad idea, just because of sheer amount of, well, threes. Honestly, it's kind of a shame because the blue pool last time wasn't as strong as well, and we did have some great units. Fjorm came out, but well, unfortunately, this seems to be a reoccurring trend here. And right now, we're just going to have to say that if you really want to, blue is not as strong as a lot of the other things. And again, Fjorm's free. Why are you wasting time and effort on that? Oh my god, I cannot... come on. Oh, Jesus. Anyways, alright. Let's move on to the next color and just talk about that real quick, okay? Greens. Now, the one thing about greens that I'm going to just tell you is that right now I only have 2 here. And that's because Gunnthra, as she works right now, we do know her skills, but we can't really... I can't, with all, with all my heart, give you an approximation of what I would think. Like, I can't go, oh man, this is going to be great, pull her, things like that. And honestly, I don't know if she's actually free or not. She could be, she might not be. A lot of people have been speculating that. I honestly don't think she will be free, in which case that kind of sucks, but I'm just going to say the jury is out on that one. So instead, we're only going to look at the 2 units that are aside from Gunnthra, okay? That, of course, is Amelia and Spring Crom. Now, there's going to be one number you're going to notice that's been popping up a lot, and that is, we don't dip below a certain number, but we do have it appear a lot. So anyways, Amelia is a very strong unit. The only thing here that I can really say is Armor March is great, and she is a strong unit, great speed for an armored unit, great attack for an armored unit, has Slaying Axe already, which is great. Even more so if you can give her certain abilities. Distant Counter will make her into something of a Hector standard, only now she has Armor March. And the only thing I can say is, if you haven't pulled, any unit from the Christmas banner that happens to have Armor March, or you don't really care about the Christmas banner, you could probably roll for her. She is a great unit, insanely strong, which is really odd considering her game, but oh well. Anyways, from there, of course, we have Crom, who is a spring unit, and one thing you need to know about a lot of the early seasonal units is that generally they kind of were a bit lackluster. Not to be rude to Crom here, he can be incredibly strong, but this is not Bunny Xander by any stretch. He's actually pretty decent at what he can do. But if it were to come down to it, it would probably be you would more want to roll for Amelia than it would be for Spring Crom. He's kind of a little bit shaky. But again, seasonal units, people tend to prefer other things. It's kind of funny because, you know, looking at this and looking at the Christmas Crom now, I'm really kind of blown away with how things work. But all in all, I really can't give you too much on the green pool, other than it has a very strong unit and a somewhat sizable unit. Because, well, Amelia is fun, and she can really serve your team well if you happen to have it. Just be aware that, of course, as it is with armor units, it can be a little bit detrimental to try and build them, because they are quite expensive. Alright, so let's move on to the next bit of information here, the colorless, of course. And that, of course, has a lot of interesting characters coming around. I know a lot of people are really excited to see Bridal Lynn come back. Now, the thing about this is that this time we have 2 staff units, and usually when it comes to staff units, they're rated quite poorly. But since the recent patch now with Refinery, these characters can be really interesting. I'm not so sure about Bridal Lynn, just so we're clear. I'm going to be giving her a 3 out of 5 just because, as it is, don't get me wrong, Candlelight, which is her unique weapon, is a fantastic ability. Being able to stop units from counterattacking is insanely powerful, and if you happen to refine it, even better, but it really comes down to if you can maybe want to use it on that, use it on her. It's really hard to say. You can give her, you know, certain abilities like Wrathful Staff in her Refinery without having to waste any slots, so, well, it's up to you on that point. She can be pretty decent at what she's trying to do. Stopping counterattacks is something that is just outrageous, and she can really do it very well. But even then, I really can't say much outside of that. Now, with Elise, of course, is a Cavalier staff unit, and since she has that, and some of the best attack stats for a staff wielder, she can be insanely powerful with certain things like, you know, Wrathful Staff, and especially now with the newer staff abilities that have higher might, and of course, don't require, you know, you could give her Wrathful Staff, and maybe even give her, you know, something like, you know, the Dazzling Staff, which just makes it so, hey, no counterattacks, basically. Which, again, fairly strong. Good abilities. Good abilities for her. Something that you're going to want to put into it. And if you get Elise, you should be happy. She can be insanely adjustable to any situation, be it attack or not. She is, again, on a horse. She's a Cavalier, so she does have the advantage of being able to meld with Horse Emblem a lot better than most staff units. Next up, of course, we have Innis, and Innis gets a same rating of a 4 out of 5, and, well, that's mostly because, you know, last time we kind of had a lot of great things, like, well, we had Bravelyn, and unfortunately, for him, you know, I shouldn't really say it like that because he is still an insanely strong archer. Even if you don't roll certain, you know, weapons on him, his base weapon is a legendary bow that is essentially an Altome that just works beautifully if you happen to have allies surrounding him, because it works a lot better on an archer, surprisingly. And he can be insanely strong, has great resistance, in case you need a good unit that can tank mages a little bit better. And all in all, he is a great bow unit. Unfortunately, though, you can kind of see a little bit of a discrepancy with a lot of these characters now more than ever. Obviously, the red pool right now is probably the strongest you can go for, just because, well, you know, you can't really beat a distant counter weapon, and all these other advantages for things like Sigurd, who just has insane, you know, survivability and things like that. But when it comes to all of these pools, I really think that a lot of them have great options. And since all of them are either seasonal units or, you know, 5-star only, you really have a lot of options to choose from. But it's really up to you. And that was just to give you an example of what, my example of probably the best pools to pull from. God, talking about this is weird. I still say red, and then probably, you know, colorless, and then green. At least until we can get a better idea of what's coming. Colorless is cool. And I can't really say blue is all that advantageous when it comes down to it, but probably, actually, now that I think about it, red, green, colorless, blue would probably be my priority list. But, you know, red is obviously stacked right now, and that's something that I can just constantly say, get behind, you know, go for it. And that's basically everything I have to talk about here, guys. I hope you found this video, you know, good on the information, something you can, you know, look at when it comes to, well, going for these banners and what color you should aim for. Just be aware, though, if you're aiming for any color, you're going to have a bit of a slippery slope because, well, you can't really choose what unit you're getting. You do have the, you know, the little problems of what might be there. At least you don't have to worry about a non-focus unit coming in and spoiling the, you know, pull. So that's good. So, alright. Catch you guys later. If you enjoyed this, leave a like and, you know, be prepared for the next legendary banner. So, which is tonight, I think. Anyways, catch you later, nerds.